Hello, this is JB with Going Wild Again. Finished working on our sheath some more. And you can see I've taken the belt loop and I've came in a 1/2 inch on either side and cut that off. And I've also taken about 1.5 inches, 2 inches off the very end there. So when it folds over, you can see a nice leather belt, about 2 inches or so wide, fits in there pretty nice. Okay. And I've taken a little tool I have here. I've set it at 1/8 inch or so, and I've ran it down the back side. You don't need the tool. You could also just measure in and mark it and use your straight edge. You can see how that kind of leaves a mark on the stained leather there. That's to start our first run of holes. You can do both sides, but what I like to do is fold it, and once I get the holes punched on this side, fold it, and then come through with my punch and knock out the other holes. That way you're sure they line up 100%. Another thing we're going to do is add some holes here for sewing this down, because we have to sew this down before we sew it together. That'll give us a little practice on the stitching. And I've saved the little strips here. They come in handy. I always save all the little pieces I cut. Say you have a knife and you want to make a sheath to where it comes up like this. You could sew this to there and add a snap to the sides there and have a locking device, which I like a lot. But this one we're going to wet mold and see how that takes. I'm sure it'll be just fine. Another thing I like to do is take the knife and put it where I visualize it sitting, and I take the pencil, hold it in place, and I come through and just mark about where the welt is going to sit. You can kind of see it there, maybe. That way the welt just sits in there along that edge, and you don't want it too close. You notice the welt's a little large. We'll cut that off after we get it stitched. Okay, next up, we're just going to come through here. I'm just going to mark some holes here. Don't have to be too straight. Up from the end just a little bit. Just going to mark a little square. And I did that just on the belt loop there, because we're going to have to poke some holes to sew that down. And you can also get some snaps or things like that if you want it to be able to come through. There's no problem there. All right, for poking holes, you can come through with a hole punch or an awl. I have these little pricker things. You get it on Amazon, or you can get these also at tandyleather.com and Hobby Lobby. They go on sale. Pretty good to look out for. I have a couple of pieces of cardboard cut just to go underneath the leather. I've got a rubber mallet here. This one's pretty old. You can get these at the Dollar Tree. Pretty good. Most of my tools you can actually find at the Dollar Tree, except for the leather specific ones. We got our straight line. I'm going to start with I think this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We'll start at the end and just give it a little tap. Doesn't take a whole lot. And it's good to have the cardboard underneath just to protect these. They bend fairly easy. And what I do is, instead of going to the next one, I always put the last two inside. And we've got our straight line here, so that's pretty good. I'll put 2 in. Now it's kind of hard to see. So that way it's actually just punching 4 holes at a time, because I'm using 2 just to keep it the distance spaced. And just take your time, relax, have fun with it. Good little hobby. As far as saddle stitching goes, there's lots of YouTube videos from different places that specialize in teaching saddle stitching, so it's pretty easy to find. Tandy Leather actually has some nice instructional videos on saddle stitching and more. And as we get closer to the end here, we might need to drop down to a 2. Or we can just back this one up and use more holes. Like I said, this is a great skill to have, because in the old days, people couldn't just run out to the store. You had to be self-sufficient. And the last one I was actually backed it up, and I've used the 3 instead of just 2, just so I could get close to the end. And you kind of see how that looks. Kind of dotted line there. Next I'm going to come through and do the loop. And I'm probably just going to do I've got a 1, 2, 3, 4 one. Here I'm just going to use a 4 on the line there. And a 4 straight across. And these aren't going to be visible, so. You can see how those are. Just clean up the holes here a little bit, make sure they poke through pretty good. So I can mark my other side. They didn't quite go all the way through. Went through that time. Nice. Okay, now I'm going to bend this, get it about where I want it. Make sure it looks about square, center. Make sure the loop comes out a little bit so its belt slides in easily. Make sure it looks fairly straight. Then I'm going to come through and just put it in the holes that are already poked and just hammer them in. You kind of see how it goes through right there. I'm going to make sure I hold it in place, make sure it doesn't move as I pull out. It's harder than I thought it would be there. Nice. All right, line it back up. Make sure it's straight. I'm going to take a needle and just poke it in there so it holds it. Have my thread here, my beeswax, just a hunk of beeswax. You can get the thread already waxed. I think mine's waxed, but I always like to add a little extra. I'm just going to take the last hole. And come through actually and deepen these that are already in there. My right one for the job there. that's gone through. That's good. Take my needle. Poke it through. Got one already up here with attached to the thread somewhat. Oh, there it is. Still in the leather. Put that in the hole. There you go. You can see how it's going through. There. And that'll just kind of hold it in place as a mark my position for the next run. The more of these you make, the better easier they are to make. I've made a few. I'm going to take, I've already got them printed, and just finish up these holes. And you can see how that is. And I've got this side, that side. Now I'm going to take, fold this over. I've got some clamps here. I get these, you can get them Harbor Freight. Sometimes you find them at the Dollar Tree. And just match the ends up and put them through and clamp it. When we do the welt, I like to use glue also, get the four corners together, especially when I put the final stitching in the welt. But I just use Elmer school glue here. You can see it right there. You can get it pretty cheap. You don't have to spend a lot on tools for these projects. I like to do doesn't take much at all, actually. Get my four corners straight. Just moved a little bit. Corner straight. And I want to keep the stitching to where I can utilize the edge here. Line it up. Keep the clamps down off the edge, if you can still see here. Get my cardboard on the edge. And I've got my holes here. And I can clamp it right to the board here if I do it right. Let's see, there's that. There's that. That is pretty good. I'm actually going to throw a third clamp in right in the middle, just to ensure it doesn't move. All right, my board in, get my hole punch, fit it in the holes I've already made in this one side. And just go through. And you don't have to knock it through both sides. It just leaves an imprint on the reverse piece of leather, so we can go back through and knock them in. Once again, I'm just using 2 holes just to keep it evenly spaced. This is the easiest way I found to make sure they go all the way matched up. Sure, there's plenty of other ways. Come off, but it's all right because we got some nice little divots in there. Perfect. Okay, so we're going to prepare. Let's take my little tool here, come down the outside. I think it lined up pretty nicely. Just kind of keep it straight. See that right there. Come through and punch them all the way through. The needle will penetrate on its own as well a little bit. And I'll punch the holes for the welt. Once again, leather 6 to 8 ounce, makes it plenty pliable. And at the end, I'm going to back it up a little bit. I think I've just got one coming out of the good. And they're most of it. Pretty good. That should line up. And I've already got my mark on the inside. So I'm going to take that and line it up toward my welt. I want to give it a little space. Don't want it to fit too snug. Line up the end. And I'm going to back it off just a little bit. Come through and fold and see how it looks. See how it's going to fold a little bit. And the welt's going to stick out. It's fine because we're going to cut that off when it's all said and done. After we get it stitched. Nice. And it looks like about, let me get a measurement. Sticking out just a little bit there. Line up flush here, get it right about even with there. Put this down. Good. Mark it, clamp it here. Take this, make sure it's in the line. I'm gonna clamp that. Take off the clamps. Kind of slid a little bit. It happens. And maybe you could do this in the first and do them all at the same time, but you have to go through 3 pieces of leather. Pretty thick. Third clamp in here in the middle. And then, let's see, figure out how I can lay this flat. I can use this edge here, cardboard underneath, 2 pieces. One I don't think is quite thick enough. And you can see how I got it there. And I just need to go through and mark it a bit. Start with my holes I already have. What I could probably do is just expedite this, draw a line on my leather here for my welt. Just thought about that. Better idea. You can see how I've got it marked there, clamped in place and marked. Now I can take my square, just cut that off beforehand. It'll work. And the welt's hidden in the inside, so you don't have to stain it. Even this small little piece I'll put in my leather box down here. You miss that little piece right there. Put in my leather box. Now I can use this. This will help me keep it straighter, I think. My little tool here, I got set for an 1/8 inch. You can measure down and just draw a line, but I've got the tool. Might as well use it. First side. And that gives me something to knock holes in. I'll just match up the holes. Following the lines. Last two forks in. Cardboard straight underneath. Looks like we're all ready to saddle stitch here. Which I'll stop the camera and start it again. Not sure how long these videos can be, so I'll see you on the saddle.